السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على محمد النبي الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. I apologize for 5 minutes late for we combine the Maghrib prayer and the Isha prayer because of the rain, and that's what got us 5 minutes behind. Inshallah, this evening we'll touch on the latest development in Gaza, and if we have some time, we'll discuss some issues relating to the Iran and Israeli war. To start on Gaza, we have seen some serious development in the past 2 days, indicating that there is something being worked out for some arrangement, 60 days ceasefire. During the 60 days, 10 live hostages will be released and some deceased hostages will be released. On the other hand, a number of Palestinian prisoners will be released. During this 60 days, food will be and supply will be transmitted to Gaza as the previous agreement, and negotiation on the next stage and on the day after would start. We know that Netanyahu and his people do not want to discuss the day after, so it seems difficult to predict that within 60 days such an agreement can be reached. But it states also that if it did not reach an agreement, then the period can be extended beyond 60 days. It did not say that it has to be extended. And that was the condition that the Israelis have put. The US will guarantee the first period, and they will try to facilitate a continuation of the agreement to come out with what will happen afterward. What about the rest of the hostages, those who are alive, those who are deceased? At the same time, Hamas is to bring about basically a roll of the number of hostages who are alive, with some medical records and some medical reports, and those who are deceased. It remains, of course, to be seen if we're going to have an announcement tomorrow from the White House to this effect, because as you are aware, the president likes always to take credit and to show that he is making deals and he is successful and this and this and that. So I think he would try to make an announcement tomorrow. The Israelis still want to work some details, so it remains to be seen if he will again get his way and make the announcement regardless. We have seen for the first time in a long time that the Israelis have sent their delegation to Qatar, which is really significant in this regard, because their sources say that although Hamas points are not acceptable in this regard, but we can negotiate and we can talk and so on and so forth. So it seems that something is ongoing, but also we have seen, despite the opposition of Smotrich and Ibn Gfir, the Security Cabinet have approved supplies to Gaza, specifically also to North Gaza, and to be distributed through the international organization that have been distributing before, not through the GHF. Many of you are familiar, some might not, with this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is a criminal organization supported by the Israelis and by the US. This organization was made up despite the fact that so many international humanitarian organizations rejected it and rejected the way that they were supposed to do and function, distribute their food, because their aim was in public, the Israeli says we do not want food to go to Hamas. But actually, what had taken place is this organization brought some mercenaries. They were shooting at Palestinians. They were, in fact, bragging about it. Not just this, the Israeli army would bring all those Gazan to take food and they will shoot at them. Every day, we almost have 100 plus or minus shuhada just trying to get the food. One of the most moving accounts, without the pictures, because the pictures by themselves are devastating to whoever would watch them. Without the pictures, there was a report by Anas Baba. And for those who did not hear about Anas Baba is the correspondent of the NPR and sometimes for the BBC in Gaza. So he's working for foreign organizations, and he is a Gazan, so he lives among the people of Gaza. He had a report 2 days ago, and basically he said, I lost 50% of my weight. Now imagine we are talking about somebody who's working for a foreign organization. So his salary should be way much better than the average Gazan or even the well-to-do Gazan in this regard. He said as a result of this campaign by the Zionists to bringing very limited amount of supplies to Gaza under the control of this GHF, he said, I lost 50% of my weight. And when I ran out of food, listen to this, when I ran out of food, I decided to go with my cousin to one of those places to get food. He said, we packed few things, water and a knife. I said, why would Anas Baba pack a knife? He said, basically, the knife was to protect whatever we're going to get from the food so the gangs will not take it. Because the Israelis have established gangs in Gaza and supported them with weapons. And those gangs, they play more than one role. One part is to try to kill Hamas people and jihad people and what have you, like Abu Shabab and company. And others are just to spread among the Gazans fear and terror in this regard. So Anas Baba, remember this knife because there's a story coming. So Anas Baba said, we got this knife and some water and we walked hours. We walked hours to this place where the food is being supplied by this GHF, which is again a US Israeli-sponsored organization in Gaza. He said, when we got there at 1:30 in the morning, we were told that the food started being distributed. So he said, we went with the crowd, thousands of people, we went there, and suddenly the Israeli army, IDF, started shooting. And many people were fell to the ground, they were killed. He said, me and my cousin, we just threw ourselves to the ground so that we will avoid those bullets. He said it turned out that the food distribution did not start. And they want to get the people away, so they start shooting at them and killing some. He said, when I stood, I start moving, walking. He said, I had to step on many bodies, either dead or injured. You remember, this is 1:30 in the morning in this regard. And said, after a while, there was somebody saying, oh, they are distributing food. He said he came back with his cousin to, with their knife to the location. And he said, what struck me, and listen to this, to tell you how much now the Zionists, with their supporters, unfortunately, among the gangs in Gaza, doing. He said, what struck me is this woman in her 40s. This woman in her 40s. She is there with her son. They were able to get some supplies. And she said the woman was walking beside her son holding 2 knives in 2 hands and saying loudly, no one is to get close to my son or to our food. I mean, imagine. This is the atmosphere now. It's not enough that the Israelis are bombing from the air and chilling with their tanks. They had spread this terror among the people of Gaza that the gangs that would steal the food from the trucks now are stealing the food from the people who gather it so they can sell it in the black market, and they can spread this terror among the people of Gaza. Why in the world you will find a 40-year-old woman holding 2 knives in her hand, saying no one is to get close to my son or to our food? They want to go back to their tent in this regard. This really gives you a picture of this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation and its criminal work in Gaza. And what happened in the past 24 hours is that there was fighting within the Israeli cabinet, because Netanyahu and Smotrich accused the head of the IDF, although with all those crimes to the people of Gaza, that you are not doing enough to prevent the food from going to Hamas people. You are not doing enough to bring, Hamas to its knees. You are not doing enough to give us the full victory. And there was this, inner fighting that was basically came out in the Israeli press in this regard. And the head of the IDF was clear with them. He said, look, if you want to control Gaza, we can control Gaza. We will need a full army. We will have military occupation and we can control Gaza. But we need so many soldiers that we can take over and occupy Gaza in this regard. And that got a fight between him and Smotrich in this regard. Now, in this atmosphere, of course, he gave them other options. And the best option was, suggested by the army is, let's have a ceasefire and let's bring the hostages back and let's have a political solution. That was, of course, his best solution. And the first one was his worst solution, because he said it's not practical. We cannot, as a small country with a small army, put a full army in control of Gaza and reoccupy Gaza for a long term. It's in this spirit that there is this talk that the Israeli leadership, political leadership, except very few, Smotrich and Ben Gvir and others, that want to have an agreement. Now, this agreement that will be discussed came also after we heard last week, and for those who attended the Sunday class last week, we said there was something that really outrageous happened, that President Trump wanted to pardon Netanyahu. And there was an uproar in the, within the Israeli establishment. How could a US president, come and pardon and say that the Israelis have to pardon Netanyahu because he basically wants to get to a deal, and that Trump threatened the Israelis, I have lots of money that I give you. So this money might not be coming if you do not, follow his orders, basically, in this regard. Now, after this big embarrassment, after we met Sunday, the White House issued a statement saying, the president did not mean that, Netanyahu need to be pardoned. He was saying that Netanyahu need a break so he can have a discussion on the ceasefire and the other agreements with Iran and so on and so forth. But of course, that was absolute baloney, nonsense. What was said in this regard. So Netanyahu is getting support from Trump not to be prosecuted. and some rumors, in fact, in the Israeli press saying that he can be the next president of Israel, which means he will not be held accountable for his crimes. Remember that he is being taken to court by the government, by the Justice Department, for what he have done, corruption in terms of getting some favors and having deals with some rich people and so on and so forth. There's also a new element that appeared, that he was getting money from Qatar. And this is basically the people who were in the middle, getting money from Qatar and smuggling it or transferring it to Netanyahu's account and to Netanyahu's people. It's undisputed. I mean, they did not deny that, although they say that Netanyahu has nothing to do with it. Those people are the people who were his assistants, and his people were dealing with Qatar, the so-called Qatar Gate. I think it's within this atmosphere that the Israeli government, headed by Netanyahu with his supporters, minus those extremists that he used. Of course, Netanyahu is an extremist himself. I'm talking about the extreme of the extreme, who refuse even such a deal and threatened to bring the government down. Now, the opposition came and said, if they bring the government down, we will support the government. So the Israeli opposition, Labid and others saying basically, we will come and support you so that you will still be the government. You can negotiate the agreement and you can carry on until the end, so that we will have a conclusion for this. Don't worry about those extreme of the extreme in your government. We will take care of it and we will support you all the way until the ceasefire and the negotiation are done. And if you read the Israeli press, you will see basically that the Smotrich and Ibn Gfir are fuming over this and making threats left and right that this cannot be done, and the government should not even think of it, and so on and so forth. So that's basically the atmosphere within the government in this regard. Now, there is the bulk of the Israelis are in support of a ceasefire and an agreement to free the hostages in this regard. And that's clear. You can see it across the board of those who do any polling within the population. So based on this, we say that it seems that there will be at least a ceasefire for 60 days, and then some of the details can be worked out. From my perspective, if Netanyahu will have some kind of a guarantee that he will not be prosecuted and he will not go to jail, he will take it all the way. If any moment he will doubt that this will be the outcome, he will go back to war. And that's what Hamas is trying to avoid, a clue to go back to war. But Netanyahu will never, given the circumstances of where he stands, because he does not want to be like Olmert. Olmert, Prime Minister, ended up in prison. He does not want to go to prison. I mean, he's like 78 at this now, 77, and he thinks himself like the king of Israel. He done all of this. What have changed? Of course, they war with Iran, where now the Israelis are claiming victory, while Iran also is claiming victory in this regard. And they saw that they were also affected in ways that Tel Aviv did not see since World War II. Being many destruction. There are images now in the Israeli press that says 5 military bases were hit by Iran, and many residential areas and so on and so forth. Many institutions like Weizmann Institute, like some of the universities and so on and so forth. So he cannot just purely rely on the issue with Iran. It is helping him to really stand in a situation where he can be either pardoned or have him become, the president or what have you. Herzog, the president, is in support of him in his trip to Washington to cut a ceasefire deal in this regard. So, as I said, all indications is that there is something that is being worked out. And the indication, as I said earlier, one of the indication that food start coming to the north of Gaza through humanitarian organizations like the UN and others, not through the GHF. And this is a significant change. It was very much opposed by, again, Smotrich and Mnagfer and company. There is a development that is not Gaza related, but as a result, some of you might have seen it. It looks like something was cooking in the West Bank. We have known that those gangs and the Abu Shabab clan that really came and declared his blood to be allowed, meaning that anybody who kill him, he has no responsibility in front of his tribe and family. It looks like in the West Bank there was something cooking in the past few weeks or a few months. We have a declaration from someone in Hebron, and this is important to the point that the Israeli press and Al Jazeera cover it. That there is this guy from Al Ja'bari family, and Al Ja'bari is a big family in Al Khalil, Hebron. At one point, the mayor in the old days was a sheikh from the Ja'bari family, and they are a clan that is not to be underestimated in Khalil of their influence. At one point in 2007, they took many of the Palestinian Authority soldiers hostage because one of their members was killed. So basically, they have a power base. Now, this guy who does not live in Al Khalil, in Hebron, he lives in the surrounding of Jerusalem, came out and said he's striking a deal with the Israelis to establish Imarat Al Khalil, the Emirate of Al Khalil. I know some of you are showing faces, but I'm just telling you what's going on. And he says basically that this will be a first step. There will be Imarat Ramallah and Imarat Nablus, Imarat Jenin, Imarat Tul Karam in this regard. And those Emirates will function like the United Arab Emirates. They will recognize Israel. They will recognize the control of Israel over Jerusalem. It will become its capital. They will insist that the Aqsa Mosque be under the Islamic jurisprudence or control in this regard. And they will enter an Abrahamic Accord, just like the rest of the Arab countries who did the Abrahamic Accord. And they will seek the Israeli help to get rid of the Palestinian Authority in their presence. So far, there is support among the right wing in Israel for those people in this regard, and they have promised them the government will allow, according to this Ja'bari guy, 50,000 people from Khalil to go and walk inside Israel. The Israelis said we promise 5,000 to start in this regard. Netanyahu have not said anything about this, and he's just watching it. And the theme is some Israeli observers believe that Netanyahu would, if this thing materialized, would come to the Saudis and said, we have this new reality, we can normalize the relationship with you. We have given this Palestinians entity and a say in their affairs. They are controlling their affairs and so on and so forth. Whether this will fly or not, difficult to say. I don't think it will fly. One thing is that the Ja'bari family in Khalil, Hebron, the main clan of Al-Ja'fari, issued a statement. We have nothing to do with this guy. We do not approve of him. He is nobody. He is no one. He is not a sheikh. You should see his picture in the Israeli press with the abaya and the dijdaja and this igal, and he looks like Sheikh al-Arab. So they're saying basically this guy is a nobody, and we denounce all what he said and all what he's trying to do. So basically he's on his own. Now, he's claiming that there are others who are supporting him, in this regard. And this is yet a new fitna that the Israelis have created with some agents who are being fed by the Israelis all along and waiting for the right moment to start yet another fitna. Of course, we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would protect the people of Palestine from inside fighting, because those guys, they will say we will have weapons and we can enforce the rules even if we have to kill people. I mean, they are not hiding it. We will enforce the rules, their rules, they are in charge, even if we have to kill people. And they think that they want the support of the Israelis basically to get rid of the Palestinian Authority, which have 70,000 soldiers, police, quote unquote, in the West Bank. This is yet a new headache for, of course, Abbas and his people, and a new headache for the Palestinian people who have been at the same time drained lots of, their energy, especially in the north, where Tul Karam and Jenin basically are, they are destroying houses and removing people from their houses by the tens of thousands to create a new reality. Is this part of the package? Would Netanyahu bring it to Trump and get the Trump to say a few words in support of it? That would be significant and disastrous at the same time in this regard, because you're gonna have some of the sick people, as the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, those who make naqr in the ship, those who make holes in the ship, and the ship will eventually, may Allah forbid, will sink, and everybody will sink with it. So there are a few among the people of Palestine in the West Bank, just like the few in Gaza, who can bring havoc to the reality above the disaster that the people are in from different aspects. Just as we discussed, the cities and the villages were cut from each other, difficult for people to go. I mean, things are little relaxing, but not to that extent. Today they invaded the Masjid al-Aqsa surrounding in large numbers and defy the status quo. So we would expect in the coming few weeks some dynamics in this regard in Gaza and in the West Bank. Let me say a few words about Israel and Iran, and then we'll have some questions so that we can inshallah finish early. It seems that the conflict that happened between Iran and Israel was like years back, because we are not hearing anything, as if nothing had happened. I mean, you would expect when you are 10 days, 11 days, 12 days, 13 days after the war, there will be lots of dynamics, there will be lots of talk, there will be lots of threats, there will be lots of this and this and this and that, and we are not hearing it. In Israel, it's as if, things, the focus is Gaza and the West Bank and this and this and that, and there's not much being said about Iran. Similarly, in Iran, just the Israelis, they claim victory. They told the people, we really beat the US and Israel, and from that perspective, we are the winners. Yeah, there are a few things here and there, but they are insignificant. Like you could see in the Israeli press saying that how few thousand people are joining the son of the Shah of Iran. What? I mean, Iran is 90 million people. So if a few thousand people, even if we assume this is true, that they are joining his propaganda or his channel, what does that say? But the fact that that's all being discussed, that's all being said, says a lot in this regard. The Iranians saying we are talking to the US, Trump saying he's not talking to anybody in Iran in this regard. So you can believe whoever you want to believe. But basically, the issues still are there. It seems clearly from different sources that the damage that was done to the Iranian nuclear program is not what was described by Trump. There was not the big significant effect in this regard. The US intelligence are saying that it just delayed the Iranian program by a few months. Delayed the Iranian program by a few months. in this regard. And those are the intelligence services of the U.S. We are not talking about, some other, prediction in this regard. And there is an agreement among everyone, the Israelis, the Americans, the observers, that the Iranians have removed all the enriched material to 60% out, and it's hidden. Nobody disputes this. Nobody's saying that this was destroyed. And remember that part of the Israeli plan was to destroy this enriched material. Everybody agrees that this material has escaped destruction and was transported before the war and hidden very deep, and some elements, of course, say we know where it is, but it's still there. And it can be used, and it can be enriched further to the 90% target that the Iranians are after that. But it should be noticeable that we would expect from the U.S. or Iran or the Israelis to start talking about after the war and what would be things, what will be happening, what's next, there's nothing. I mean, it's very interesting. There's nothing. It's as if there is this implicit agreement. Let's not discuss it. Let's not discuss it. Whether the aim is to do this, on a slow base and behind closed doors and no public diplomacy or this and that. That remains to be seen in this regard. But it's clearly you do not see much, in this regard happening. It's interesting that Carlson is making an interview with the president of Iran that should be released sometime tomorrow. And basically, Tucker Carlson had made very interesting interviews with some U.S. politicians and exposed them and what they stand for in this regard. It would be very interesting to see what the president of Iran had to say in this regard. And he said, yes, I am being criticized by many circles, but it's the right of the American people to know what's happening and what's being cooked for them. Before I close in this regard, let me just say a few words about what's also could be motivating for the changes that are happening. There's no doubt that the image of the Zionist entity around the world is becoming darker and darker, and they're becoming an outcast. And many countries and many people around the world, many activists, young and even mid-age, are taking a strong stand. In fact, there are some polls that says 50% of the Jewish young men and women in America support Hamas. And that, of course, is not something that the Israelis want to hear. But those, the genocide in Gaza and the tragedy that have hit the people of Gaza, to the point that the army, imagine the army is telling the government, we do not have targets to bomb. There's no targets to bomb. We do not have targets in Gaza to bomb in this regard. To that interest, the Times of Israel have published an article by Rabbi Rachel Goldenberg titled, "We Are New York City Rabbis Who Support Zohran Mamdani, Here's Why." And this article was supported by rabbis in New York area, and basically some of those names are mentioned in this regard. There are about 10 or so, 8, 10 rabbis who signed that piece. And basically they are saying that we support what Mamdani stands for. Those people who are trying to label him as anti-Semitic, those people who are trying to label him as somebody who is different, as somebody who is not caring about the Jews, as somebody who's not caring about anti-Semitism, are lying. They are saying basically we support his stand that Cuomo and Adams are too corrupted to be mayors, and we stand behind Mamdani in this regard. He is the one who is clean and coming with a plan in this city, and to try to drive a wedge or a barrier between the Muslims and the Jews in New York, that's not acceptable. We have a city and we need to work for the betterment of that city. Furthermore, they said we agree with him that the Israelis are doing this, killing to the Palestinian people, and this is totally unacceptable. This is not what Jews stands for. This is not the values that we value. The human blood, the dignity of the people need to be preserved on both sides in this regard. It just yet give you another indication in this regard that there are now voices even as high as within the rabbinical institutions in America that are willing to come and stand and say that this thing is unacceptable and we are willing to support a Muslim candidate. And in fact, they went all the way to justify his globalization of the Intifada. They're saying, he did not say it. He said that he stands by it. He did not say the statement. And this statement would mean many things to many people. And to the Palestinian people who have been, oppressed and all this killing and this and that, they want to have their dignity. They want to have their rights. So I think some of these things that are happening are sending also shockwaves within the Israeli society where they are heading around the world. Jazakumullahu khairan. Barakallahu fikum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring the khair and the good for the ummah and give hidayah for the rest. We'll have inshallah some time for question and comments. And as I said, we'll inshallah end a little early so that we can leave before the adhan since we made Isha. Any questions or comments on what we discussed or something else? Yes, Bashar.
My concern is it's not only that they're going to reach something as far as peace toward Gaza, but my concern is the Palestinian problem, which is the Gaza, the West Bank. And by the way, the West Bank is not better than Gaza. There are more than 50 or 60,000 people that they have been driven out of the refugee camps. So can you imagine the magnitude, in addition that Israel or the Zionist state control more than 65% of the West Bank. Now, do you see that Hamas is going to stay, or they're going to get Hamas out of Gaza as part of the objective of the war? Okay, that's one. Two, do you think that they're going to reach something to finalize the Palestinian problem, which is between Gaza and the West Bank?
Yeah, let's start with the second question. To try to reach a final agreement on the Gaza and the West Bank is not happening soon. It's not happening even in months or years. This is an issue that you cannot basically force those Zionists to do something unless you have some leverage. And you do not have much leverage, except if the West Bank erupted in an intifada all over, get a whole army to take back. I mean, they are occupying the West Bank. You said that the Israelis are in control of 65. They are in control of the whole West Bank. Let's be realistic. And what you said is correct, that in the area of Jenin and Tulkarem and around it, you said 60,000 people were ejected from their homes. The numbers are more than this, and they are still doing it today, and yesterday, and tomorrow. In fact, people who went to get their stuff, knowing that they will destroy their homes, they were driving them out. So to try to think of a solution for this issue of Palestine, no. I mean, we have seen this from all over the years, from 1948 to the 1967 to the Sadat, trying after Camp David to liquidate the Palestinian issue, and even the Israelis, Begin did not accept it. Sadat had a package, including the West Bank and Gaza, and Begin would not accept it. He said, let's deal with Sinai and leave this to us. And then we have Oslo. Then we had Oslo. And we have, between them, there was Rawabit al-Qura. They tried to have an alternative leadership inside. No, I mean, the issue is really come down to one point. Either the U.S. will force a solution, and they will not. The U.S. is managing the problem of Palestine, not dealing with it. They're just managing it. And the more time that passes, the more the Zionists will have their hands on it. Now, the world is changing. Even the Jewish world is changing. What impact this would do remain to be seen. But no, I do not really envision, anything serious in this regard. Especially, talk about the next 3 years or what have you. If the U.S. come and says it's time and we're going to force, which you will never expect for time to come. Because basically, the way the U.S. have dealt with the issue of Israel all along is this is our illegitimate daughter. Yes, it's the British daughter, but we will deal with it and we'll protect it no matter what. For how long, that remains to be seen. I think that unless the price of maintaining this Zionist entity in Palestine does not become very heavy on the U.S., we do not expect a major change in the status quo. I mean, look at how many presidents have suffered with this Oslo, trying just to force the Israelis to give up something. Very little. Abbas and his people do not control their homes. I mean, Abbas and his people have no control over their homes. I mean, imagine the president of Palestine cannot leave Palestine to Jordan until he gets a permission from somebody who's in the 10th position of government. A military governor will tell him give him permission to leave. Of course, upon Netanyahu approval. So no, I mean, this issue is way premature of getting a solution. To the first question of what sort of arrangements that are, to be expected in Gaza during this discussion, of course, the Israelis are saying nothing less than the total destruction of Hamas, which is, of course, utter nonsense. They have been repeating this, and the Israeli army intelligence is telling them this is not working. Even this thing, the initiative that I talked about, the Ja'bari thing, the Israeli IDF and the Israeli Mukhabarat are telling Netanyahu this will not work. It will create more problems. Don't do it. So even within them, they are not sure which direction to go. But it seems that Labid was invited by UAE, and he went to visit there yesterday. It has been a while, Netanyahu was not invited, but basically he said that Netanyahu sent him a message to pass to the UAE. The talk is, the Israeli thinking at this moment is trying to remove the people of Gaza is not something that they can achieve on the short term. Although someone hired a Boston consulting company, gave them $4 million to put a plan to get the people of Gaza out of it. I mean, it's in the Israeli news that they have an agreement, they have a contract to do it. So it's not that they gave up on this. They think that this at this point is not something that they can enforce. So the alternative is the following: they will give Gaza to the control of Egypt and the UAE. That's the thinking of the Israelis. And they let the Egyptian and the UAE, with what we know, what they stand for, to deal with the people of Gaza and to deal with the resistance of Gaza, which again will be yet another, disaster to the people of Gaza. So instead of having, Israeli soldiers doing the killing, we'll have our own brothers doing the killing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. As I said, we will have, there are 10 minutes left for the adhan. I'm going to give you a chance, inshallah, to leave. Because if you're going to be here in 10 minutes, you will need to join the salah as an additional prayer. since you already made Isha. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. We will see you inshallah next week or the week after. Assalamu alaikum.